Good morning and welcome to a special edition of BBC Breakfast with me, Charlie State, in Normandy on the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Our headlines today. The scene is set here in Vers-sur-Mer, the site of the British Normandy Memorial. The King and Queen will lead events. At a vigil at the Bayeux War Cemetery, more than 4,000 gravestones lit up in tribute to those who never returned. And they are the men who changed the course of history. More than 40 veterans have made the trip to Normandy, and I've been speaking to one of them.
I was up on the bridge and I could see it all, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get in the water to help them or save them.
The sculpture of three troops storming across the sand stands at the centre of the memorial, signifying the invasion by land, sea and air here at Gold Beach on the north coast of France.
I'm Snagge.
Good morning from HMS Belfast, one of the first warships to arrive at the Normandy beaches. And here in London it's a cold start to the day, as it is more or less across the board. It's another day of sunshine and blustery showers, most of which will be in the north. I'll have all the details later.
Good morning, it's Thursday the 6th of June and welcome to a very sunny Normandy, where 80 years ago today more than 156,000 Allied troops launched an attack on German forces which would change the course of history and would forever be known as D-Day.
This year, the 80th anniversary of D-Day is only the third time that veterans will have been able to come on the 6th of June to pay their respects. And when we talk about those names, if you look at the pillars and you look at the walls, the names that are carved in stone, they're set out in units and in days.
These are the people, the veterans who were involved, and we'll be hearing from those this morning as well. Events have been taking place already this morning in the early hours. We're going to go to Sword Beach now. Declan Harvey is there, and Declan, you witnessed one of the first events effectively of the D-Day anniversary itself. Tell us more.
Yeah, just as the sun was coming up here on Sword Beach, a piper from the Royal Irish Regiment walked across this sand to remember the events here 80 years ago. There was a piper here in 1944 as well, and by that time pipers were still relatively unusual, but they were here on D-Day. Sword Beach is the furthest east of all 5 landing beaches, and as you can see, it's a lot flatter, perhaps, than some of the other beaches. It doesn't have the major dunes or beach heads that the landing troops encountered, perhaps, on Omaha, for example.
Now, their role on D-Day was to protect soldiers who were trying to land on Juno Beach. He witnessed events firsthand, and he welcomed me to his home.
King and the Queen leading the commemorations, and it was really important for the King that he was here. It's been a really bumpy few months for him, of course, since his cancer diagnosis. The diary was cleared, engagements cancelled, but this was the one thing he wanted to make sure he could get to. And having spoken to some of his staff and people from the royal household, they said that everything was going to be done in order to make sure the King could make it here today. It was really important for him to be present.
Yes, Daniel, people can probably hear there have been a number of aircraft flying past this morning, front and centre of everything that's happened, and we saw it with the King and Queen talking to the D-Day veterans, will be their stories.
Yes, absolutely. You know, today will be full of pomp and ceremony, kings and queens, prime ministers and presidents, but at the heart of everything will be the stories, the memories, the testimony of the veterans. And
Quite complicated, but I started with making little models. I worked from life. So I had a footballer who was a striker for Oxford United called Ashley Bayliss, and another model who was a ballet dancer, and I needed people who were strong and physically strong that could hold the position. And I asked the footballer, I said, can you imagine you're up against a defender and you want to get round him? And so you've got this sort of feeling of slightly off balance, and that sort of made the energy and movement. I then wanted to get the weight of the sculpture in, and it's modelled in clay, so it goes from clay into bronze.
Way with your eyes, you see it another way through the camera, you see it a different way looking into the sun, you see it a different way looking away from the sun, and you really feel as though there's some life in them. Yeah, it's quite magical, it really is. And it really is the reaction from people.
The anniversary of the eve, there was a service to honour the heroes who never came home.
He passed down through the family?
I think he didn't really want to speak about it.
Right.
So obviously I respect that. So it's just a little snippet of information I got, to be fair.
Okay. And why it seems to me that as if grandparents and grandchildren never seem to serve in the same branch of the armed forces. Why?
CO725.
Hi, Major Trevor, thank you very much for joining us. I know you've got a busy day ahead. So a mixture of atmospheres here today. There's the sombre, the frankly spine-tingling, and the celebratory. The whole town will turn out for a parade here in Arromanches on the northern coast of Normandy.
Next hour we're going to do? We're going to put 2 landing craft utility onto Gold Beach. Where they're going to cross the beach. We'll have a small memorial service. And then we will replicate the, we call it a yomp, but think hike that 4-7 Commando conducted.
Here in one place, and we've just delivered what they really, really wanted. Maybe we delivered it 50 or 60 years too late, but it's here now. And when the King and the Queen come later on, it'll be the crowning glory, if you like, for what the veterans wanted. Those small band of surviving veterans, they've got their memorial. We've delivered it for them and for the nation. And a little bit later on, the King is then going to open the Winston Churchill Centre for Learning and Education, because it's one thing to commemorate those who fought and fell, but future generations must know the story.
I think you're absolutely right, Charlie. There are a lot of mixed emotions, especially when they come back here, and there is a sense of celebration. Of course, it's primarily commemoration on the walls, on the pillars. Where does your mind go? What are your thoughts?
To us, we have a duty to A, present ourselves, and B, carry ourselves forward.
They're the men who changed the course of history. More than 40 British veterans have made the trip to Normandy, and I've been speaking to one of them. It was just before 6:30 in the morning on June the 6th, 1944, when British, American, Canadian and French soldiers began to land on Sword, Juno, Gold, Omaha and Utah beaches, taking the enemy by surprise.
Haven't been in contact with some of the organisations that have brought the veterans here, Royal British Legion, Spirit of Normandy, the Taxi Charity, etc., etc. So we don't know what they think, but presumably those are people that have taken a decision just not to talk about things as well. So you do hear that, Charlie, don't you, time and time again?
The Memorial Trust have produced. And so that's what we're doing, really. We're now in a business of passing on the memory, passing on the lessons, so they don't have to be learnt again the hard way.
D-Day and to Normandy, did your grandfather talk much about what he experienced, what he saw, what he did here?
He did to the rest of the family a little bit. Unfortunately, he died when I was 4 months old. So I
want to remember, may want to move on from. But all of those emotions will be stirring around and mixing around today. As I said.
John, thank you so much. So you've been watching a special programme from BBC Breakfast from Normandy, marking a day that changed the course of history. 156,000 Allied troops storming the beaches here in Normandy. Goodbye.